In this video, we are going to introduce and go over the perfect tense. So far we have learned about the present tense, which is action occurring right now. The subject verbs, is verbing, does verb. We have learned about the imperfect tense. The subject was verbing, imperfect, an action of the past, not completed. Now we are dealing with the perfect tense, which is an action of the past completed. As a matter of fact, that's what the Latin word perfectum, or perfect, means. It means completed, done, over with. Now, as is always, there's going to be items embedded. This video is going to have 4 items embedded in it, and by watching this closely, you'll be able to obviously get a free 100. So, to learn the perfect tense, first and foremost, I use the brown marker. The reason why is because, again, the action is completed. It's over. It's like a brown leaf from the tree. It's dead and done. And so therefore, it's an intentionality that I use it. Secondly, we love the perfect tense because if a student goofs up something when it comes to the present tense or the imperfect tense, informing them, what they will goof up is the vowel. They won't goof up necessarily the present stem. They won't necessarily goof up the present endings. What they will goof up is that vowel that goes in between them. There is no vowel for the perfect tense. It is going to exist of only 2 parts. A perfect stem, and so we'll talk about that in just a moment, and a perfect ending, which we have 6 new endings to learn. No longer are we limited only to OST, must, tis, inti. Now we're going to have perfect endings. But that's the beautiful simplicity of the perfect tense. So, let's take a look at our principal parts. In learning the perfect tense, we are now going to expand it to where the verbs are going to have not just 2 principal parts, but all 4. Paro, parare, paravi, paratus, aum. Now, again, it is still with these 4 principal parts. The one that is the most important is the second principal part, is the infinitive. The infinitive gives the conjugation and the present stem. But now let's expand and figure out what's going on with the others. Now, if we look at every single third principal part, parawi, havui, misi, kukuri, duksi, yeki, adiwi, waini, fui, ii, or iwi, you will notice they all have a long I as their ending. Just in the same way that paro, havio, mito, kuro, duko, yakio, audio, wainio have a long O. These are endings. Present endings, because the first principal part is the first person singular, present active indicative, and the third principal part, first person singular, perfect active indicative. And so therefore, whereas, and I can get my green marker for present stem, non-completed action, we get the present stem from the second principal part. For my brown marker, you get the perfect stem from the third principal part. And that's your first item. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So it's everything except for the long I, which is the ending, just like the O is the ending I. Everything except for the long 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 I. The long I is not a part of the stem, the perfect stem. Everything except for the long I. Everything except for the long I. Now, this is the beautiful part concerning the perfect tense as well. Sum, esse, and eo ire are irregulars. And in the present tense and the imperfect tense, you would just have to memorize the forms. When it comes to the perfect tense, they, irregulars, also follow the rules. And the rules are you take the perfect stem and you add your perfect endings. Even irregulars follow that rule. So you take your perfect stem, everything except for the long I, and your perfect stem, everything except for the long I. So again, even irregular verbs follow this pattern of a perfect stem that we get from the third principal part, plus your perfect ending. So let's talk about those perfect endings. We already know the first person singular, I in English, is a long I in Latin. And these are then the rest of them. And these are the ones you have to memorize. You just have to memorize them. I, isti, it, Imus istis erunt. And again, isti it, imus istis erunt. I, you, he, we, y'all, and they. And so it's as simple as that. You recognize these endings, you know that it's going to be a perfect, and you will know it is, of course, what corresponding subject in English. I, you, he, we, y'all, and they. Now, while we're at it, and your second item is the ending erunt, E-R-U-N-T. They, for the perfect tense. Now, let's talk about the perfect stem. Now, when we look at all of these third principle parts, there is a pattern which will emerge. And that pattern that emerges is that there are certain letters that you very often see. And those letters are V-S-U-X, V-sucks. So if you are going to be presented with a verb that you don't know if it is a perfect verb or not, and let's go with embulawit, the presence of that V helps you to know that this is most likely a perfect verb, and thus you'll have to translate it in a perfect way, which we will talk about in just a moment. And so therefore, V-sucks, V-S-U-X. Here you see a V, here you see a U, here you see an S, here you see an X, a V, a U, and another V here for the other form that you could have for the verb to go. V-sucks is one of the ways. As you can see over here, the second way, and that's your second item, by the way, V-sucks, V-S-U-X. Or third item, that's number 3, V-sucks. You can have a lengthened stem. A lengthened stem. Now, a lengthened stem is when you see one like wanio, waniere, wani. Here, look at the present stem. That's the second principal part. It's V-E-N. Well, here, for the third principal part, it's still V-E-N, but it's lengthened. It actually is lengthened in the verb yakio, yakare, yeki. And so sometimes it'll be lengthened. You have to pay attention to that. Other examples of this include the verb to sit, the verb to read. If we were to look at those, there they are. As you can see, I'll get these out of the way really quickly. For the verb to sit, S-E-D versus S-long-E-D. For the verb to move, M-O-V versus long M-O-V. And so it could be lengthened. A third way that you will recognize a perfect stem is that sometimes it is what we call reduplicated. For example, look at the verb to fall. Kado, kadare, kikiri. In the first group of principal parts, look at the verb to run. Kuro, kurare, kukuri. And so it's reduplicated. But the most common is that V-sucks that you see very often. So again, why do we love perfect tense? It's just two parts. The perfect stem, which we get from the third principal part, and these are the qualities that help you recognize that it's perfect. And then obviously your perfect endings, E is the it, imus istis erunt. So let us talk about how to express into English an action of the past that is completed. There are 3 major ways that you can translate a perfect verb. And let's just pick one at random over here. Let's go with yakio, yakare, yeki, yaktus. So here it is. That's my perfect stem that I got from the third principal part. And I can pick any one of these. Let's go with yegerunt. So, first and foremost, what I notice is that I see that the stem is perfect. That's the first thing I recognize. I do not look at the word and see throw. Secondly, I figure out the subject, and now I then try to express this as an action in the past and completed. First way by which you can translate a perfect tense verb is simply saying the subject verbed. Now remember, you can translate imperfects like this as well. It's the simplest translation of an action in the past, and it is actually neutral. In that, when you say the subject verbed, or the subject's verbed, you're not indicating completion either way. It is just merely telling you what happened in the past. And that's why you can use that expression for both an imperfect, ba, and a perfect stem and perfect ending. The second way that you can express it would be the subject did verb. That's what we call the past emphatic. And so, like the subject verbed, you can also say that for imperfects. But this is then the way. That is the best way to go about and translate it. And let's make it plural subjects, just for fun and giggles. You can also say, and this is the one, that truly in English, and I guess I'll do both of them, the singular and plural, is by using the English helping verb has or have verb. So, whenever you say the subject has verbed, you are saying that the subject did it in the past and it's over. If you say the subjects have verbed, that is an expression to indicate it's over. So they threw, they did throw, they have thrown, and it is completely over and done. And that's how you then will not only recognize a perfect tense, but the expression of the subject has verbed or the subjects have verbed is the way that you will be able to obviously express an action of the past, but completed. And your fourth and final item is the helping verb have, H-A-V-E, to truly indicate in English a completed item.